Computer. Hey y'all, it's Whiskey. Welcome to Bugs in the Lip Gloss, and I'm so glad you came back to join us again. And today we are with my friend Bonnie, and she's going to introduce herself in a much better, more not extravagant, but a little more embellished than I just did. And then we're going to have our conversation as always. So welcome, Bonnie. What can you tell us about yourself?
Good morning, Whiskey. Thanks so much for having me on. And let me just first say how much I appreciate you for doing this for other women. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
A little bit about me, the Cliff Notes version. I am a self-employed person living in upstate New York. I'm in the Finger Lakes region for anyone who knows that area of the world at all. I have been on a spiritual journey of my own for about maybe we're going to say 6 to 10 years here. It kind of depends on where you count, how you count. But ultimately, I have changed so much as a result. And the last 2 to 3 years have been incredibly transformational. So much has changed for me, my life and my relationships, in my business, in just the way that I interact with others. And I'm just so grateful to be on this path.
Awesome. And it's funny you said, what'd you say, the last 6 to 10 or 8 to 10, and the last 2 or 3 have been like bulldozing forward. I feel the same way. Like everything kind of turned on its head like 8 years ago, and then it was a slow, gradual path. And then just recently, it's been lightning speed. So if you would, let's go ahead and start with the beginning or the backstory or whatever you think is the things that you're healing from, first of all. And I
Mhm.
tell all the ladies, you're in the driver's seat. You can tell what you want, what you don't want. I'm not going to limit or tell somebody that they can or can't say something.
For
So
sure.
if you want to start there, please.
Sure. Well, I think I'll put this little punctuation on it first. You know how many of us have had our hearts broken out there in the world by a man. We know how that feels. I'm someone who's had her heart broken multiple times by jobs that would not love me back, and put too much of my energy and too much of my light into external things. And this all really began with me taking a job several years ago, quite a few years ago now, at my alma mater, at my college where I went to school. I actually have been doing freelance work, and for a variety of reasons, that freelance work sort of dried up. And my husband and I, at the time, we wound up moving back here to New York. I took this job with my alma mater, and I was so excited to be a part of that team because it was something I could get behind. It was a place I believed in. It was something that I could put my heart into, and I did that for over 10 years. And while I was there, I was slowly climbing the ladder and, really trying to do my best job always, because that's who I bring to the table when I work for others. And I was presented with the opportunity to apply for a vice presidency when a vacancy finally came open. And long story short, I applied for this job, and I really felt like I'd earned it. I felt like I deserved it. I'd shown people for multiple years that my heart was in it. I knew the territory. I'm a marketing director. I had learned the entire operation inside and out by then, and they passed me over. And that was pretty shocking. And in the moment, really devastating because, like I said, I really thought, wow, these people know me. How can they choose an outside candidate? How can they overlook me in this place? And so I sort of licked my wounds and stepped back from it and said, okay, well, I suppose I can support this new person who took this role. I'll stay. I still loved the place. I still loved what I was doing. I wanted to support it. And, I figured, let's be humble. Something's not right here. Just stick around and see what happens. Stuck around for a couple more years, and didn't that person not survive in that job? So once again, this vice presidency came open, and I was like, that's mine. It should be mine. What do? I apply for this job. And once again, universe says, hell no, sister, that's not for you. And then I was really, really devastated. Not once, but twice. I got my heart broken by the same job that I had now at this point poured almost 14 years of my life into. So you can, equate that to a marriage or anything else. I had been, pouring my blood, sweat, and tears into this. And this place was like, nope, not for you. So at that point, I really went to a dark place. I really went to a dark place. And I was in the middle of a relationship with a man who was also fighting some of his own demons. And so between the two of us, we weren't really helping each other out much in terms of that energy. And I quite honestly, I got to a place where I was suicidal. I didn't know who I was. I didn't understand why people couldn't see my worth. I didn't see my worth anymore because I was seeing it through this lens of not good enough. Um, and thankfully, I was smart enough to get some counseling and really kind of get my head straight. And that inspired me to say, okay, well, what else is out there? Where else can I put my time and my energy? And who else will have me that will treat me better? And the right opportunity kind of came out of nowhere to work for my local hospital, which is just down the street from me, a little place that was really desperate for some good help. And I was like, oh, this is a perfect fit. It's new world, it's new people. I can apply my skills. They need me. I wanted to feel needed again. And I went into that role with my eyes open, however, because I knew that they were standing in this place of getting ready to partner and that job wouldn't exist the entire time, that very likely it would disappear. So I had a different mindset going into that. I was like, well, let's just see what I can learn. Let's just see what I can get out of this experience. And when the writing was on the wall and I could see that they were going to end my job, I took that opportunity to use it as a springboard. I saw that as, okay, great. This will give me some runway. And then this time, I'm not letting someone show me the door. I'm showing myself the door on my own terms. So when I did
Yay.
that, yay, right? How about, reading the tea leaves and getting ahead of those things, right?
Right.
I was so proud of myself for doing that. And what I wound up doing was, kind of writing a contract with them and saying, I'm going to go start my business. I would like to help you make this transition. Let's work out an arrangement. And that gave me some runway to start building back up my freelance contacts and people that I wanted to reach out to and start working with. So at that point, that really put me in, finally, for the first time in a long time, in the driver's seat of my job, of my life, in a way that I hadn't been before. And it felt like freedom, right? It felt
Mhm.
like freedom to be like, wow, I can take the work I want. I can work with the people that are going to that are going to bring me joy, and I can give them great value and all of this. Well, that was all great, but guess what? That was in 2018. And shortly there,
Surprised.
surprise, surprise, what came shortly after that, right?
Yeah.
So shortly after that, we hit our marvelous, gigantic roadblock of the pandemic, and like everyone, that really kind of kicked me down, emotionally, with my business as well. Things I couldn't control, all those things you couldn't control, and I went back to that dark place. Honestly, I had lost my footing again, and that's when, thank God, Tony Robbins decided to throw out the lifeline of, here's this program. And for years I'd watched Tony and I'd been impressed by him, but I'd never actually engaged with any of his content because it was too expensive and it wasn't accessible to me. And when he started finding the energy for online events and putting that out there, that gave me an opening. And those free events that he started to offer were my first window in. So I think he called it New World, New You in 2021. That was really the pivotal moment for me. It lit me up. It made me realize I was giving away my power. It made me realize
Absolutely.
I was giving away my power, and all of these things, instead of finding my worth here, I was letting everything else define it for me. And at the same time, it also woke me up to one other thing. And that was that I was really disconnected from myself as a soul.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
that piece right there, those two things were gigantic light bulbs for me. And since then, I've just been on, like you say, bulldozing forward in this spiritual path. So it's brought me to where I am now, and we can fill in some gaps there, but I'll stop there so you can
Oh, no,
ask some
you're
questions.
fine. Well, and it's funny because I haven't posted the other videos yet, but like the three or four interviews that I've done, like two or three were all Tony Robbins people. So it's starting to sound like a Tony commercial, and I promise it's not. I do not get endorsed. There's nothing going on here other than the fact that people are willing to give credit where credit's due when they found the resources that they needed to work on themselves. And there's tons and tons of things online that are free through his stuff, or Jordan Peterson, or um Brene Brown. Any of these people are all professional. I'm a retired teacher, so professional development comes out of my head. Personal development, which that's funny that came out, right? I said professional development instead of personal development, and I do that a lot. So, and the two things that I wrote down about your story that I made a connection to, and that I want to talk about, number one is identity and boundaries, right?
Mhm.
The identity piece is because And well, maybe I'll ask you first. What do you think, or how do you think the identity piece of this had affected you? Like, where were you placing your identity versus where you do it now?
Oh, it was completely external to me. I was a writer, I was a marketer, I was a dragon slayer for my partners. I was a person out there basically, throw me the hot potatoes and I will create or make, good things out of them for my colleagues all day long. That's what I was doing. And I got really good at being that, being in that place of just, you know, soldiering through, being the good soldier on behalf of the organization I worked for. But I never stopped to think about what that was doing for me. And it wasn't filling my cup, right? So my identity now is really about filling this cup first and also understanding that I can't do any of that other unless I am honoring who's in here and knowing what's, to your point, boundaries, what boundaries I need to set around that.
Yeah, that was the next question too, is like, what boundaries did you have to set yourself to? Because let me rephrase that. When we do these things and when we make these changes, we have to start with us first. It's not we might be spilling everything out to the external, but to make the change, we have to take it internal, right? So it's not like you set a boundary for somebody else first, right? You didn't do that first. You had to set the boundary for you first. You had to tell you no, not them,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
So what did you realize that you had to change it with yourself, and what boundaries did you have to set up for yourself to do that?
I would say and maybe I wouldn't describe it as boundaries. I would describe it as self-love.
Mm-hmm.
I would describe it as really honoring myself in every way and really recognizing when I'm being asked too much. And that sounds really simple, but it's not. Um, at the soul level, I guess, right? So there are things that I resonate with now that I can actually feel energetically are for me. Before, I was completely like, I was completely blind to that. I didn't really have any sense for that. And I wasn't trusting my gut. I mean, trust my gut in certain things, but I wasn't trusting my gut in those circumstances. And I was also feeling very, I don't know, kind of trapped in, that employment situation where you have a job, you need to perform, you do your best and you go home every day and somebody asks you to do more the next day, and good work always means more work gets piled on the next day, and it
Yeah.
just becomes this never ending cycle. And when I started took this step back and said, I don't want this anymore, one of the things was I wanted to control my time. I wanted to control not only who I was working with, but when I was working and under what circumstances I was working, so that I wasn't working 70-hour work weeks, and so that I wasn't, getting texted at 10 o'clock at night for something the next morning at 8 a.m. And being able to feel way more empowered to set those boundaries with clients that are mine, as opposed to feeling empowered to do that within the previous environment I was in.
Right. And like you said, the with the boundaries and things like that, I think it's we at some level, and especially, I can't even say especially women, I think it's universal. We are trained to be yes men.
We are.
We are trained to be yes men. You don't say no. You don't not back down. You don't, and it's funny because when you look at what they're talking about now, it's oh the whatever quitting, where the kids are showing up. I call them kids, right?
Quiet kidding,
Quiet
quitting.
quitting, right? I
Yeah.
call them kids because I'm almost at the 50 mark now, so apparently they're kids to me. Um, but quiet quitting, right? They have Everybody's like, "Oh, look at these kids quiet quitting," and I'm like, "No, no, no. Think about that, because they have actually figured out I don't have to kill myself for this job. The company will
Yeah.
keep running, and they're still going to pay me. You're not getting all of me." And they might not actually understand the psychological concept of maturity themselves yet, but they're already doing it, right? And
Yeah.
all these companies are like, what's going on? And I'm like, they're doing what we should have done 30 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And when you think about it too, and part of my journey has been reconnecting with like, what do I need to heal? Where did that belief or where did that behavior come from? It comes from my childhood. I dearly
Mhm.
love my parents. I owe them so much. My parents were extremely hardworking people who came from extremely hardworking blue collar backgrounds. They didn't ever let a ball drop. They
Nope.
never allowed anybody to be let down. They were always working their butts off. My dad often had, he was a volunteer as well as working, his butt off as his day job. My mom did two things as always. There was never a moment where they were not really focused on other things and really and also supporting and serving others, right? My dad, my mom, both serving others. So that was instilled in me really young. And I learned from them modeling that the best way to get to be validated was to perform. And
Hmm.
that performative perspective I carried forward and became this straight A student and became this, right?
I was
Right?
just gonna say, it's not just perform, it's perform perfectly.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
You missed
1000%.
the perfect part.
Right. So I describe myself as a recovering perfectionist
Hmm.
because I spent so many years really not putting a hair out of line because I was afraid that somehow that would create a reaction or a consequence that I wasn't ready for. Every household has its challenges and there were challenges in mine, and that was the safest place, is if I stayed in this lane and I didn't allow myself to be creative, so to speak, and create any kind of chaos in my household. So I was the perfect child, and I carried that forward into my adult life. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of unwinding and healing that piece so that I can be creative and really playful now in the work that I want to do with women.
Well, did you ever notice like the perfection wasn't perfect enough?
Yes,
Like,
a thousand.
even when it was perfect, it wasn't perfect enough. Like,
Yes, talk about, you can never win, right? You can never win that game. You will always fail at that game. And I never understood that until now. We set the bar and somebody else sets it here, and then you set the here, and then somebody else sets it here. And that bar is always going to be raising. And if you're someone who, is constantly chasing the 100%, whatever it is, that perfection, you'll never get there.
if
So yeah,
Tony says what, perfection is the lowest standard for achievement.
it is. And I never understood that until that landed so hard for me when I
Yeah.
got that from him. Yes, yes.
Because you literally set yourself up to fail and you're like, well, see, well, not good enough. Well, see, and
Yes,
it's from the jump. It's not, the perfection you set up is not good enough because
yeah.
you said it, you know. So I'm gonna go. I wrote down a couple notes and I'm like, I don't remember what that was about, but I'm gonna think of that one. Um, this one, we're back at identity real fast, or
Mhm.
it's, how did you find your identity? Because you said you had it connected to all the external things. How did you find the internal? Because the internal was work pushing out, but yeah, do you see what I'm saying? How did you
I
find
get
internal identity?
that was its own sort of extra special internal exploration, so to speak. So after sort of engaging with Tony's content and really becoming kind of plugged into that community and meeting some great people, one of the people I was
Thanks.
ultimately, yeah, you included, one of the people I was introduced to and got to know was a healer, who she and her husband have become really important in my life. I signed on for a year of spiritual coaching with them. And it was something for the first time in my life, I really just trusted my gut on. I met Carolyn, her energy just connected with mine, and I resonated with her on such a visceral level. I was like, I don't care what this costs. I know I need to do this work. And I know that I need this container, so to speak, this safe container to really explore who the F I am, to
Right.
really understand myself at the deepest level I've ever understood. Because I've spent so much of my life running, 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 running. And that's a trauma response, by the way, running all the time and never stopping.
So
I
is
was
working. So is working yourself to death. Work
working
mode is
myself.
my jam.
Yep,
Yep.
and I am that. So I was in that place of, the hamster wheel, hamster wheel, hamster wheel. I was like, no, I'm going to give myself the gift of a year in this program, in this container, to really get deep with meditation, to explore energy work, and more importantly, to really just understand myself better. And the more that I did that and tuned into who's in here and understood that I'm not my body, I'm not my emotions, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not what I do. I'm the soul in this meat suit having a human experience for a while, and I get to drive this around for a while, but I'm not any of those things that I'm doing out here. It's all in here. It became really clear to me also that I was a lot of, I don't know, over the years, I've always been a teacher.
Hmm.
It started to dawn on me all the years that I've been in whatever career, wherever I've been inclined to teach, I've been inclined to mentor, I've been inclined to lift others up. It has always been there and fundamental to who I am. And it never really occurred to me that I could walk a different path with those skills. And in, seeing what's possible, and also the transformations that are possible when you empower women to see themselves through new eyes, because really that's all it is. It's
Hmm.
perspective. That became a real calling for me. And I was like, wow, I need to explore this more. So that spiritual, year-long program has then led to the next step, which is now I'm in a year-long coaching certification program that is focused very much on, and interestingly enough, brings together all these concepts that I have gathered over the last 7-10 years, full circle into a place where I can now become a practitioner, and I can
Right.
feel that foundation to bring that forward.
So, and then I'm actually a trauma response life coach and resilience coach, and I'm not certified, but I have other paperwork and documents in my background and blah, 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 blah. I have a bachelor's degree in education, right? I'm a retired teacher. So, what made you, and it's not, unless you're in certain, is it because you're in certain states you have to be certified, or is it just personal choice?
No, it was really about the program. Quite honestly, I
Okay.
care less about the certification. I care
Thank
more
you.
about what's being executed in this program, which is incredible. And I don't want it to become a commercial, but I'm really,
No,
really,
you're fine.
really, I'm impressed with the woman whose program I'm in is Claire Zamet is her name. But if anyone wants to look it up, it's incredibly focused on unlocking women's power in particular, and helping us as coaches understand some of the fundamental differences with what women need when they're being coached versus men. And one of the things I've come to learn is about shame-based meaning making, and how women see their life through relational lens. We do not see our lives as souls. Typically, we see it through everybody else's eyes.
How
And
our
so we're
lives are how our lives are impacting everybody else's lives, not how our lives are impacting ourselves.
because that's biology.
Right.
We're supposed to
Nurturers.
be the right? And
Mhm.
so we're fighting against that. That's pure biology. But at the same time, we're also inclined to attach shame to mistakes far more quickly than men. And so as a consequence, we take things personally and we internalize them, and we make them part of who we are, as opposed to going, oh, that was just a circumstance. Oh, I could learn that. I didn't make a mistake. I can learn from it. And all
Yeah,
those
I don't
other,
make mistakes. I make lessons.
right? And the judgments, though, that we're putting on ourselves are the ones that are actually burying us in all those layers of not good enough.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's another thing, y'all. Like, coaches need coaches. Just because we
Mhm.
coach other people, there are so many layers of so many different things that not only are we taking in what other people are telling us, and we have to alchemize and transmute and put that back out and help them and not absorb what they're doing, we also have to work through our own crud while we're doing that. And I have a mantra myself, excuse me, I have a mantra myself that is learn, teach, learn. Because the more I learn, the more I could teach to somebody else. And then I see how they take things and project it back to me. And then I have more to learn. So
Yes.
every single person that I work with is teaching me something else about myself,
Mhm.
so it's never ending process. Go ahead.
I love that. I think that's exactly what people need to understand too about coaching, is that coaching is not about you or me being the smartest person in the room.
Mm-mm.
Coaching is us holding space for other people to see how incredibly brilliant they already are, for other people to see how perfect they already are, and for us to be able to shine that light back on them when they've lost their light, because the light is always there. The light didn't disappear. They just may have dimmed it for a variety of reasons. And it's our job to help people find their light again.
Right. And I mean, it goes with family, it goes with jobs, and I've had a family dynamic that had molded me to be the way that you were speaking when you started also. and work mode was my jam. It's like, I'm Superman. Let me move out of the way. I got it all. I don't need anybody. I will do it all for you. Just watch,
Yes.
right? Which actually crashed and burned me in my career because I just couldn't handle it anymore.
Been,
Go ahead.
been there, been there.
Oh
I've
yeah,
been
I
there.
know. Well, and the job, your job is a job. And like in education, to some extent, it is so hard. I'm glad you said that you found out that you could find a different venue for who you really were, because when I crashed and burned from teaching, I that was my life. I ate, slept, drank, got up in the morning, went to work 7 days a week, even if I didn't go to the school. Teachers don't punch out,
It's
right?
true.
Teachers don't punch out. And I taught inner city. So I'm not
Mhm.
only did I have my own traumas I hadn't dealt with, I was taking on all these kids' traumas because I'm going to save them too,
Yep.
right? That was just a very unhealthy, bad deal. And I found out really fast that when it was time to take care of me, the school could care less about me. And that's just about, and it's not to rip on education, which don't even get me going there, but name a job that genuinely cares about their employees when it comes down to brass tacks. You know, it's not the case. It's not the, we romanticize that our employer and our corporation is there for us and this is so great and this is the best place ever. They'll have a new application in the paper or a new ad in the paper by the time you get out of the parking lot,
Exactly.
right? And then it was filtering through and like, I'm not a teacher anymore, right? The whole identity was stripped away, and it took me years. It took me as long as it needed to realize I didn't even need that degree to be a teacher, right? And when we were kids, our teachers didn't have degrees. They didn't have licenses.
Yeah.
It was something innate in them that they knew what to deal with and how to be that person for that next generation. And look how much better education was than it is now, right? So
Yeah.
there's some, and that's the thing with the coaching and certification versus not certification too. It's it's that love and that knowing and that push and that drive from that person to put out what they want to put out into the world and how to deal with it or how to teach other people the journey that they've already been on. Um, this these three words is driving me crazy. I wrote down asked too much. And I think where I'm going to go with that is you had said something, was it about job or family? You said at some point you felt like you had asked too much
Others were asking too much of me.
or
And
others were asking too much of you. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, so to your point, yeah, this is recognizing that we don't have to, just because the job says, you know, this is your job description, you know, it's never going to stay there. It's always going to be, there's always going to be the other duties as assigned. And if you're a person like you and I are, you're just going to step in and take on those other duties until you're staggering under the weight of them.
Mm,
And so, yes, exactly. That's who I was. That's what I was doing. I thought I was doing the right thing by doing that. I thought it would be rewarded in some capacity. It never was. And if nothing else, it just simply, it killed my health. I gained all this weight. I felt lousy. I was exhausted. I was grumpy. It was taking its toll on my relationships and everything else in my life. And here I am and on, so you've got the one hand of like that external perspective, and this is kind of the BS we put on ourselves. It's like, I
right,
have a job and I look like I'm succeeding, and yet underneath it all, I'm drowning,
right.
right? So many of us women are in that boat because we're actually doing it all alone. We're in
And we
that.
won't tell anybody we're drowning.
Yes,
Will
we
not
won't,
tell
because
anybody.
there's shame attached to that. And we don't
Uh-huh.
want anybody to know that we can't handle it, because we're supposed to handle all of our stuff, right? And so this is exactly like the self-talk that got me to the place of nearly killing myself.
Right.
So
And I just wrote, here's more. Like the there's that joke that says the better you do, the more you can do everybody else's jobs, right? And like you're doing great. Here's everyone else's.
yeah,
Excuse me. Um, and in my case, I was teaching in a rougher school, and there was a lot of kids and a lot of issues within that school, which is not specific to any neighborhood. Every neighborhood has issues, but because I was given the gift of working with these the rougher kids, right? The school started giving me all of them and all
Mhm.
of them at the same time. My room became the dumping ground for the kids that the schools didn't want to deal with, you know, and I love those children, and they always had the best growth scores. Nobody could figure it out. And I'm like, it's because it had nothing to do with education. It was dealing with all the heart stuff, and then the kids would learn, right? But it was just that I had all the heart stuff. So, but that's what I was saying, like with the jobs and the boundaries, like there was no boundary set with myself going, you can't give me all these kids. You can't give me all of that. It was, no, I got this, and I'll go support for that team. I'll go work on this teacher team and I'll do it all, right? So what does this, now that we have these boundaries and we've set up our identity and we know who we are, and that was the thing with me too, is I realized I'm still a teacher. I was a teacher
Mhm.
to start with, and I'm still a teacher. I just had to find my own venue, right? Which is exactly what you did. So what does your future look like knowing what you know now? And okay, go ahead with that first. What does your future look like?
Well, I'm going to take the lid off of what my future looks like. I'm really putting a stake in the ground with coaching, but it's more than coaching for me. Coaching is just a container because it's so much more. For me, it's also about really leaning into the energy work that I have come to discover and become really passionate about, because everything is energy. Love is energy. Love is a frequency. And if we
Mm.
can vibrate at the right frequency, we can bring so much good into the world. So I'm all about that. And the other piece of it for me is sound healing,
Oh,
which is an
love sound healing.
so I'm not learning this officially yet, but I'm going to. It's on my path, and in the next 6 to 9 months to be trained in sound healing. And I've also become and have had for a while a personal passion for foraging and natural medicines. So there is a piece of me that is emerging as a medicine woman,
Right.
and a lot of self-talk that I've had to kind of beat back around that, because like there's something in my head. Who do you think you are? How do you how dare you go
Who has
call your
bestowed that upon you to be able to do what you're doing? And the only reason I interjected that is because I'm doing the same thing. I went full apothecary 3 years ago. So, yeah. So I totally get, because it's so disconnected from the system we're in. You're like, who said you could do that? Well, oh yeah, I didn't
exactly.
ask permission.
And I'm not going to ask permission, and I'm going to
Exactly.
keep doing what I'm doing, which is, I feel called to share this. I feel called to help people understand that they are walking on food and medicine every time they step into their yard. I feel
Hmm.
called to help people heal themselves in all ways. And so it's not just about, spiritually, but also what can we get out of this beautiful planet and the world that we're in that isn't pharmaceutical, that can help us in so many ways. So I'm going to integrate all of those things over the next probably 2 to 3 years. That I have no idea where it's all going to take me, but I know where I'm headed.
We're gonna have to do another show just on that stuff of what you've learned so far, because like people don't understand that whatever poison comes out of nature, there's also an antidote. Like whatever there is to hurt you in the world, there's something that to also heal you. So and it's not in a medicine cabinet. So yeah, most people don't understand that. So we so have to do that one someday.
Happy
So
to.
as we wrap this up, what would be your sage advice that you would give somebody else to who would be like you when you started this journey?
Hmm. I would say, when you feel yourself being triggered, when you feel yourself being not valued, turn inward, turn the mirror around, and ask yourself what's underneath all that. Because you're giving when you allow others to take your power away, you you will always be powerless. So you can take your power back anytime, and it's by loving yourself more. It's by recognizing who you are, that you're a sovereign spirit, that you are here and you're perfect as you are. And no matter, and people can't take that from you. They can never take that from you. You carry that with you always.
Yeah, it's 100% a choice, correct?
Yes.
Like, and Joyce Meyer, TV evangelist, I used to listen to her all the time. And she said it all the time. She said, you can be pitiful or you can be powerful, but you can't be both.
Amen.
You have to decide which side of your own line you're going to stand on. So,
Right.
oh, I'm so happy that you came in to speak with me today. It's amazing. But thank you so much. Is there a place where people can find you or reach out to you? Because I could put it in the show notes.
Sure. I mean, like right now I'm just on Facebook, so you can find me at facebook.com, Bonny Renner, Bonny, Bonny with a Y, Renner, Renner. But I will hopefully have a website and other things soon. I'm working more still on me. So, but soon there will be some more web presence for me. So
Yeah, I don't have a website yet either. I'm like, we can use the resources that are there and be resourceful, right? And it's got as much as outreach as anything else. And then myself is in the Bugs in the Lip Gloss on YouTube, obviously, if you're watching this, and then Bugs in the Lip Gloss on Facebook. And I think that that's where I'm going to go with that. And I'll have all kinds of other things if you want to continue to support the mission and ministry of what I'm doing to help give other women voices on in this world and to keep me moving on the road too. If you're following my nomad story, all those things will be down in the show notes. And we love that you joined us and can't wait to see you on the next one. Thank you so much, Bonnie, and everyone else. Keep on rocking.
thank you, Whiskey. Lovely to chat with you today.
Yes, ma'am.